As most of you probably know, I am a composer, and I have recently received multiple paid commissions that will into more paid work if all goes well. Although I'm still a student at university, this is literally the beginning of my dream career. I have been waiting, practicing for this for hours a day for years and years, and here we are. But it came at the single worst possible time. I'm on break from university and visiting home this week, but I came via train, or to be more specific, 4 trains, so I couldn't bring my computer. Instead, I brought my laptop, which has Logic Pro, as opposed to Cubase, which I'm used to. But I've barely touched the software and don't yet have my virtual instrument samples installed on my laptop. After several days of tedious tech setup, e-licensing and verification, etc., I'm now up and running, but everything is just a massive pain. I'm downloading samples all day, and it's going to take until my deadline next Monday to get it all on my laptop, and to boot up, for some dumb reason, some of the samples that are not available, replaced by new ones, which are much, much worse. I'm sick of it to death. This is my introduction to the professional industry as a composer, and I made very bold claims to my employer about what I can and will do. Claims that I am 100% sure that I could back up with results if I was at my studio, otherwise I would not have made them. I am losing my mind over here, about as furious and anxious as I have been in my whole life. Help, please. From Jonno.
Well, thank you so much for that topic, Jonno. I tell you, I understand where you're coming from. I have definitely been in situations like that where nothing seems to be working right, and it's just like a mountain of stuff you got to deal with. And not only that, but you got all kinds of other stuff to handle too. Like you're not at your studio. I understand, and yes, it is tough. But I tell you what, one of the people I know who can be very helpful with figuring out stuff is the person right above me. This other guy named Joe. Yeah, you.
Above you? You have someone above you?
I
Oh,
do.
oh, 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 okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
you.
images. Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm helpful. Perfect. Thanks, Joe.
You
Well,
are.
thank you for your question, Joe. I think this is uh, a really important, and really like a very like specific issue, right? Like it's not something vague or something maybe you're on the lookout for, but something that's actually happening right now. And so I appreciate you sharing something specific because it really helps to get at one, a specific answer, but two, you can use specific answers later on. So, I mean, when we're talking to people, whether or not it's our employer or a friend that we said we'd go get coffee with on another day, um, we like to stick by our commitments, and I'm very glad that you said that's what you want to do. You want to stick by your commitments. However, as with anyone, your friends, colleagues, work employers, if you're unable to meet a certain deadline for reasons that are very legitimate, maybe your train got delayed, so you can't meet up for coffee that day, or you're stuck in traffic. Don't like actually be stuck in traffic. Don't make up an excuse. But people are very receptive to, okay, yeah, something came up and you're unable to finish on the deadline. It's okay to contact that person and say, hey, look, I have an issue and I need help with this. Can you extend my deadline, or can we work something else out? Because I'm only going to get part of the way done with what you want. I'm only going to make it halfway to the coffee. Maybe you only have an hour lunch break, and I'm only going to make it like halfway through your lunch break. Can we reschedule? Do you just want me to come halfway through the lunch break? Or in this instance, do you want to push it back a little bit so I can get back to university to finish it for you? Or do you want me to do something partial based on what I'm working on now? So be willing to say, hey, this is what I'm going through. You're willing to communicate to us on Don't Worry Wednesday, hey, I've got something going on. Can you help me? And we're happy to. We would love to. But truly, a lot of it is talking to the person you're working on things to. Most people are very receptive, especially if they're your employer who wants to train you and build you up to be a very good professional that can do good, solid work for them. They want you to do very well too. So don't be afraid to say, okay, this has come up. It's unexpected. What can we do? Because it's far better than waiting for, it's far better than waiting to the last minute and then saying, I didn't get that done. All right. Saying something early, especially when things are happening, indicates a level of respect for the other person, and a respect for your time as well. So that's something really good to say. On the reverse side, you've been talking about how you've been working yourself a lot, and it feels like super stressful to get used to this new software. One thing is to just, again, reframe that as something good. The time that you're spending is not wasted. All right, it is helpful to you. I know it won't feel like it now. A lot of things that we learn as we're going through them feel miserable. And I always come back to the example of my first college professor who told me about accounting. Like, she was an accountant, she loved accounting. And so every one of our classes, which none of them were accounting, she would talk about accounting. And I said to her face, we don't need to know this. We're never going to need it. Can we really focus on what the class is all about? And she treated me really kindly after that, which I am grateful for. But I feel really bad because I proceeded to go become an accountant, which is super ironic. But that wasn't something I had expected. It wasn't a tool I ever thought I would go use. And so all of those discussions that she had about accounting, that even though I listened, I was like, this is terrible. I don't want to deal with this right now. Came back to be very helpful for me. So you might find that in this transition, you learn a lot that is helpful, engaging, and help, and really teaches you a new way of looking at problems. Even in your old software, you might go back to the old software that you're really comfortable with and go, because I did this way, I know some new things. And that can be really fun. And I know that Joe over here is a very wise man who's dealt with many similar issues, and he has always managed to find a way through. So I would be willing to bet that he can provide you with even better suggestions than I. Joe.
Dude, I don't know if I'm gonna have much better than that. That really hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's pretty amazing. You know, when you get hit with something like this, it can all just pile on your head like crazy. And sometimes you get handed a project like this, and there are deadlines and there are expectations, and then all of a sudden all kinds of other stuff starts hitting you as well. You know, other outside life forces will come and try and knock you off balance or keep you from getting there. I've experienced that many times, my friend. And you know, sometimes you just got to relax, take a breath, just be like, okay, I can do what I can do. And that's it. I can only do so much. I can only get this done in this amount of time, and that's if the world is perfect, and the world's not perfect. So all kinds of other stuff happen. It's crazy. One of the things that I like to do is I'll take a step back from the project, and I'll be like, okay, at some point this is going to be finished. What's that going to be like? And I'll envision in my head what it's going to look like to be done with this project, what it's going to feel like to be done with this project, how it's going to be received by the other people who've commissioned me or whatever. And I just imagine that time of, you know, when the project is done and out of my hands, it's been released or whatever, it's been sent to whoever I was going to send it to, and it's over. I actually learned this principle from an auto mechanic who, when he was working on cars, there were times he did a lot of electrical work in cars, which is crazy ridiculous, especially nowadays with cars becoming more and more computer systems in the car. And he would just sit there and be like, I cannot figure out this problem. I can't figure out this problem. So he'd take a break and he'd walk away from the car. And he'll just go through his head, okay, how does this end? This ends with a completed repair on the vehicle, and I'm giving the keys back to the customer. And he imagines that moment. And it does a couple things. One, it sets our mind toward the future. It sets our mind toward the completion of the task. And that's encouraging because then when we can see something completed in our mind, it can set our mind at ease a little bit, right? Just forget about the fact that all the stuff that's crashing down on you, all the junk that you got to deal with, and all the variables that you don't have any control over. All that stuff can stress you out, and it stresses me out too. But when you can look past that to the completion and say, you know what, this time is going to go by, and I'm going to be done at some point. It helps to relax a little bit, and it helps to have that forward focus. The other thing that does is it disrupts that stress, like I was just talking about. So it opens your mind to new possibilities and new options, new ways of doing things that maybe you didn't think of before. So, for instance, sometimes I know in order to when I'm stuck somewhere, I need to get away from it. I need to think about something else. I need to focus elsewhere. And then when I come back with a fresh mind, I'm more open-minded to options that I wasn't thinking about before that maybe can help me get this thing done faster. It's not always fun to go through that. And sometimes it takes a little while. Sometimes when you take a step away, it takes a little while for you to kind of decompress and de-stress. But if you can figure out how to relax, get the stressful pressure off your mind a little bit, and then open yourself up to those new ideas, what you'll find is that your creative mind takes over. And it really can help coming up with those new ideas. You're a creative person, Jonno. You create music. That's very creative. You think your creativity is limited to music? Not at all. It's not limited there at all. In fact, your creativity is in all areas of your life. You can be just as creative in some logistical problem like this as you are in composing. And I know you're very incredibly creative in composing music. I know because I'm working on a project with you. And I've listened to your work many, many times for a long time. And I know how good you are at creating sounds and music that I had never imagined. And it's just incredible. So I know you can take that same creativity and apply it to any other area of your life. And you'll be able to help, move that forward. It'd be really cool. So I don't know. Other than that, I would defer to what Joe was talking about. Definitely stay in contact with the people. Stay in contact with those that that have commissioned you, and just lay it out, man. Just be honest. Because here's the thing. Sometimes we put a lot of stock in getting things done perfectly. But since the world's not perfect, it doesn't always come together the way we want it to. And everybody understands that. Everybody knows that. But one other thing I want to stress to you, Jonno, is that your career as a composer doesn't hinge on any of these projects. It doesn't hinge on any of the projects that you're working on right now, whether it's one with me or these commissions you're working on, or even projects you're working on for school. Your career does not hinge on any one of those projects. They could all explode and go away, and you would still have a promising career as a composer. no matter what the result of these commissions would be. So I just encourage you, just relax. It'll be okay. Be honest. Be upfront. Let them know what you're dealing with. You know, you might be surprised. People be understanding a lot of times more than we imagine. And I'm going to ask Joe. Joe, do you have anything else? Did you think of something else you could bring to the table here?
No, I just I didn't really have anything more other than to just agree with your commentary on how effective Jonno has been in his other projects. I obviously don't work with him on a regular basis because I teach and not music. But the things that I've worked with him on, I find him to be probably the most diligent person I've met. And so I think, that shows, right? It's not, even if you don't hit everything to perfection every single time, because we never will. Like, even if it's like right now, we don't always hit things perfect, right, on the first go at it. And even as a teacher, I'm having to be confident, consistently at it. Hey, you could give yourself a little bit more room to learn, um, because especially as we do new things, we need that time, we need that space, we need someone to say, hey, here's what you do in situations that you don't expect. And part of that is just aging. I wish there was a simple answer for it, right? Like, if you don't ever want to run into issues, you just do this. But oftentimes it's just the experience of growing up, and I'm sure Joe could attest to that as well in many fashions. But learning to deal with things that you don't expect um, is an unexpected skill, as it were. So and that's really much all I had, was to be an encouragement to Jonah and say, hey, look, you've got all of the tools and more that anyone would expect right now. And maybe we have someone else who could speak into your situation.
I think so too. I'm going to ask Princess. Princess, do you have anything that you would like to say on this topic?
I have a little bit I could say. Some of it's rehashing and some of it's, I have something I could say.
Perfect. It's all you. You're on the big screen.
And I hear you, Jonno, about wanting to be keen on presenting yourself as a stone cold professional. I very much like to do that too, which does not always mesh with the way that Ryan and Joe tend to like to run the show.
That's why we
So I
have
love
you run
you.
it.
But, as you said, on this topic, I've been irritated about everything that's happening at the worst times. Cross-country trains are on strike, so I need to worry about how I'm getting back 165 miles to Lincoln on Sunday or Saturday. Yeah, Saturday. And again, part of being professional is being responsible, understanding what your limits are and expressing that. Because they don't want someone who's going to be like, oh, I can promise you the world. And then the day before the deadline, oh, sorry, I can't make it.
Mm.
That's not cool. And that generally is frowned upon. And generally I've found, at least in my workplaces, that if you have something going on, or you have an honest mistake that you make, or you aren't able to do what you wanted or planned to do, communication is key. Because if you can tell them, hey, I know I promised you all this and I can still do this, and but this is coming my way, here is my plan of what I can do for you. One plan is I can, get it to you, but it'll be late. It'll be this date because I am not able to get to my stuff. Or I could work on this stuff and I could get it to you at this date, but I can't guarantee that it would be the same quality that I said that I was going to do at that time. what are you looking for, and how can I work with you to bring this project to fruition? Because I am excited about this opportunity, and I want to make sure that this work that I do is what you are looking for. So that's what I would do, because again, everyone has things, so suddenly people get COVID, or they lose someone in their family, or they get an unexpected phone call that their kid is sick at school, or their kid's doing something at school and they now have to go take care of something, or
Yes.
hey, your lawyer called you up and now you have a whole bunch of paperwork that now you have to add on to your schedule too, and that's going to take up so much of your time that you're not going to be able to get to this thing or that thing. Again, it happens. It's going to happen to everyone, and timing is almost always not going to be perfect. Why? Because life happens. So, what I would say is that don't stress so much about everything happening at the worst times. Things are going to happen when they happen, and the best thing you can do is remember that you are flexible, that you have the ability to make something work, and that you can talk with them. Because most people are reasonable. And as long as you show responsibility, that you are willing to do what it takes, give them plenty of notice. Most people want at least 24 hours, but if you can give them more, 3 days or 5 days, the more you can tell them, hey, something's going to happen, or hey, I know that you want something from me. I'm taking a vacation right now, or I have something that I really have to do that's a priority in my life here, express that, because everyone has those, right? And so the more that they know and can work around you and can work with you, the more that you can work around your circumstances and work with them. Because nobody really wants to just, be the jerk and be like, oh yeah, well, you have your father's funeral, but we need you at work that day.
Oh my gosh.
Most places are not that. There are probably some places out there that have been that. And that's a very tough place to be. And that becomes a choice. But that's not the choice that you're faced with right now, unless they come back with that. But if they come back with that, that might not be a place or a piece that you really want to pursue, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have two wonderful options in front of you, two paths that you could take that, potentially would get you more work. So you also have a choice in what you do for work and what environment you pursue. And you're a hard worker, and that's wonderful. So you can pursue that. But make sure that you know what your boundaries are and that you are strong in them. Because you don't want things that are going to push you and push you and push you against your boundaries and push you past your boundaries. Because that's the stuff that's going to burn you out, or that's going to make you feel miserable doing something you love,
Mm-hmm.
which nobody wants, right? I feel like I'm pretty confident in that.
I think you're pretty right.
So
It's just
To be
as
I
always
honest.
will
right.
turn it back
Yeah.
to Joe and Joe.
Thank you, Princess. You're awesome. And you're really right. And Joe, I like what you were saying too earlier, that sometimes, or maybe it was Princess. I don't know. It was one of you two wearing blue. But um and now I lost it. Oh well. It happens.
Well, this is, I think, Princess was talking about with the, and I think with what Joe's saying here and what we've seen is your personality, Jonno, is very much like a ba 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 ba, get it done. And there are some people like Joe and myself. Just, maybe it's a Joe thing actually, but where it's just kind of like you just kind of let it slide, and we really a we really appreciate people who are there and willing to push us to do more and more. So in terms of like letting people know things that they probably don't want in advance, when I told my last company I was working for I was leaving, I think I gave them like 6 months notice or something crazy like that. So it, do we have another topic? This might transition into another topic, so I'll save it for that. But basically, there's a thing where when you tell someone something you don't really want to say, um, people can tell. People can tell when you're like letting yourself out there, and they respect that greatly.
Hmm.
Those are the kinds of people you want to have conversations with and you want to work with.
Hmm.
Um, so anyway, keep an open mind. Hopefully Joe remembered he found what he's looking for, or maybe he found another
I
trail
do.
for us to follow. Oh,
I do
nice.
remember. I do remember. And it's the whole thing of, as you feel this pressure, it's like building a muscle. Handling this amount of stress and then learning how to deal with it is a valuable skill in itself because stuff is going to hit you. Um and you don't have to necessarily when you're talking to these people and explaining, about, issues you might be facing, you don't have to go into every single detail about what's going on because sometimes they might just not get it, right? That happens. Sometimes people, I mean, I have a lot of very unique circumstances going on in my life, with divorce, custody, all kinds of stuff happening in the background, which is many times in the foreground of what's going on. And, there are a lot of details there that I can't share because it's fairly sensitive information. But stuff like that, I mean, people might not be able to relate. So all I can do is I can explain, I can say, hey, this is where I'm at, this is where I'm going. I try and keep people updated as to progress on what's happening. And but like has been said numerous times, I think communication is important. To have some kind of regular communication with the people that you're doing this work for, so then they don't feel like you just left them high and dry or whatever, right? So that way they can still know that they're counting on you. They know that you're still working on it. It's just taking longer than expected. And I know Saule had some good stuff in here. He said even professionals sometimes need deadlines moved. My capstone project is working with a real company on a project that will be going straight into production. There have been moving deadlines throughout the project. The best thing is to present a solution when you present your project. And this project could lead to jobs for a couple of us with the company when we graduate. And you're absolutely right. Sometimes these things are really important to us. Sometimes they could have a big deal on our career, our future. But if it falls through, it's okay. Try to adopt the axiom that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If this falls through, it doesn't matter. You'll find another way. There's always another way. And maybe a better way. Sometimes doors close on us. And at the time, it hurts so bad. And we're just like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. This is going to wreck everything. But then a couple years down the road, we're like, oh my gosh, I'm in so much of a better place since that happened. I'm so glad that happened. But in the moment, we're like, we're never glad that it's happening, right? Because it hurts. I mean, Joe, I don't know if you've experienced that. Have you ever experienced something like that?
Oh yeah. Everything hurts a lot more in the moment when we like, this kind of sucks, and then you look back and you're like, I'm glad I went through that, which is man, that's a really weird feeling, don't you? Wouldn't you say, Joe? Of like, oh yeah, I'm glad that hurt as much as it
Mm-hmm.
did.
Yep. I feel you. I've been through plenty of stuff like that as well. And then I look forward to those days when it's better, but I also understand, hey, you know what? In the moment, it really, really hurts. So I'll tell you what, Jonno, you and actually to anybody in the show here in the chat, my DMs are open. You can feel free to message me anytime. If you're stressing out or whatever, you know, I would love to hear from you and just say, hey man, I'm freaking out. Talk me down. And I'll do my best, because I care about you guys and I wish you the best. And Jonno, I know you and I, we've got projects to work on. I know I see a tremendous future of multiple projects, with you and I, if you'll continue to work with me. I know I can really stink to work with, but I try to be better. But anyway, thank you so much for that topic, Jonno, and hopefully some of that shed some light on the subject for you. It's a tough time, but that stress, the unexpected things that can happen, it's hard. But in the future, you're gonna have other situations where stuff is stressing you out, and you're gonna be glad that you're stronger for those situations. And the only way to build that strength is to go through these situations, unfortunately. That's just kind of how life goes. We don't get good at something unless we experience it time and time again.